the surface of this topic a few times in some of our previous podcast episodes, but this is a big one, and we felt it deserved its own episode.
Absolutely.
So today we are talking about motherhood. And I will just start off with saying a couple things that I did not expect from motherhood. And that is, number one, how isolating and lonely it was.
So I almost think we can have a whole talk just on that alone.
We definitely can. Even how isolating our American society is as a whole, right?
Yes, but boom, to start off with that, Greta, you're like, isolation. Damn. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. Sure. But before we get into it,
yes.
I'll just say the other couple that came to mind. These were just like, you know, the things that surfaced immediately when I started talking about motherhood. Number two, and this is kind of in the order, I felt like it hit me, the judgment from other moms. Holy fuck, were moms so judgmental about everything you did with your own baby. So that kind of came out of left field for me. And the cool thing is now there's actually a term for it, and they're calling it mom shaming. But when I had my baby, I didn't even, there was no term.
Yeah, we had no word for that. Phrase.
Yeah, I just felt shitty and judged.
Mm.
So the third thing that came up for me was just how monotonous and fucking boring it was.
Totally can relate to that one, big time.
Yeah, and I will say I was a stay-at-home mom. I had my real estate career, but I could pick and choose. I had flexibility. For the majority of the time, I was at home on that day-to-day, you know, hamster wheel of motherhood. And the fourth thing that came up for me was, and this didn't even happen right away. This definitely snuck in there further down the line. As I got deeper into motherhood, you know, I'd probably say this was more like when my kids were kindergarten age, was identity loss.
I almost feel like we need to hear like sirens or something go off right now, like woo woo, identity loss. Like that's such a huge,
I think a lot of moms feel that.
Yeah.
And it's easy to have that happen because you are so busy trying to keep your kids alive, trying to give them the best childhood, trying to be there for your husband, feeling inadequate because you're not bringing home the money. And all of a sudden you just, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sweeping the floor, which if you know me, the last thing I want to be doing is cleaning the house and in my house stuck. But that's what I was doing like on a daily basis. I would wake up, I would clean, that's the monotony.
It's like a Cinderella moment.
The kids would mess it up. I'd have to do it all over again. And then before you know it, it's time to make dinner. And, you know, I look like shit. And my husband's coming home and he's like, what the fuck did you do all day?
Sweat.
I did everything. It looks like I did nothing. And you've lost yourself. You don't even know who you are anymore. You're just...
Well, clock time, also there's like the psychological time versus clock time. And I think you're like stuck in a psychological time because it's just that wheel that keeps going, and it doesn't matter. Like you're doing the same thing at 8 o'clock in the morning than you are, you know, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then again at 7 o'clock in the afternoon. And it becomes so, like you said, monotonous. And it's like, where is the creativity? Where's the fun? Where's the joy? And I say that, however, it's like as we reflect on those moments, there's so many things I wish and could have done differently. And so I think this, our talk today is really, geared towards any mom, but like especially those who are just starting out, like please listen to this and take it wholeheartedly, because I think if you can learn from some of our challenges, like you can actually kick this off and have a blast, you know?
And I do think it's starting to change. I do think there's a revolution happening. And when I reflect on my, I was in my early 20s, raising 2 babies. It was extremely isolating. Like I said, I was one of the first in my friend group to have kids. So I didn't have like other moms to go to the park with. I remember that was like one of my least favorite things to do. I would do it because I needed to get out of the house and I knew my kids loved it, but I would go to the park and I would just be so sad and lonely. And I would try to connect with other moms and they weren't interested. And I would just, I mean, this was before smartphones. Thank God, really, in a way, because I at least wasn't sitting there like on my phone. I was actually interacting with my kids. And so that's a challenge that new moms today have is put the phone down and because you don't want to miss it.
Or even their kids at the park, you know, without a device in hand and actually playing on the swings and going down the slide and also socializing with other kids on the playground. So yeah, we definitely have many more conveniences in life, but many more distractions in life.
Even though the phones can be such a hindrance and they're awful in so many ways. I mean, I really do wish we could just like chuck them out the window. But they are also providing something unique for young mothers on social media. There is this revolution happening. There is this cause where women are coming together and they're showing themselves in the shit show of motherhood. And it's like when I was growing up, when I was raising my kids, we had Facebook. Everybody showed everything that was perfect. Look at and I'm guilty of it too. I've made these posts. Look at my newly organized closet for my toddler with all her cute little dresses and everything's color coordinated. That's what we would see when we would go on social media. And then we would feel shittier because we didn't have an organized closet and the baby's room had just shit everywhere.
Well, it almost started as like a brag board of some sort,
yeah.
Right? Like, let me put up all the good things. And not that that doesn't happen still, but that's how it really started. Like, let me show all these amazing things that are going on in my world. And now what you're saying is things have shifted a little bit where people are like, no, I had a really fucked up day and like, this is what I look like,
and
you know?
I'm crying in the car and I'm eating fast food
yes.
and my kid's eating fast food too.
Totally. And soda just spilled everywhere and I don't have time to clean it up. So I'm going to go to my doctor's appointment with wet pants on, you know, and people are sharing those things more so now than ever before.
Yeah. And then you're not feeling like you're all alone in this because I remember feeling like nobody else is this bad of a mom as I am. Like it's 3:00 in the afternoon and I haven't showered. No, everybody else gets up at 6 a.m. and they shower and they put their makeup on and their house is clean and they have dinner like the week of dinner prepared. And maybe some people, I mean, actually, I won't say maybe, some people do thrive in this setup, in this structure of life. And I did not. My personality type did not. And like you were saying, a bragging board, like that's exactly what Pinterest was. And that came out around the same time. And so if you weren't, cutting out little crafts for your kid's birthday party and making your own balloon arches, then you were a shitty mom and your poor kid is missing out on a good childhood.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think we had to learn, I think as we evolved in how to utilize all these things and feel like you have to keep up with all this stuff, that got exhausting. So like not only was your day exhausting just the way it was, like now you've got all this other shit going on too, which I don't know. I mean, I actually was that mom that did not have the balloon arches and I didn't pay attention to a lot of those things. I thought it was amazing that people had these talents and gifts, but that just wasn't who I was. So I guess that was one gift because it definitely lessened that. But I know so many moms
we were a little older too. I feel like it came sort of like at the tail end of, my kids were just a little bit out of that. They weren't having those first birthdays and those big, birthdays when they're little babies. And I would watch the ones that were just a little younger, really just run themselves into the ground. And there was this mentality of like, I can do it, so I should do it. And I'm not a good mom if I don't do it. And all my friends are doing it.
So this is really interesting because, before we really jumped and hit record and all of that, we were starting to talk about, at what point did women in general start to feel a little bit more isolated in their lives, like as mothers or just in general. And you had brought up some things with tribes and just kind of like the Industrial Revolution and some stuff that made shifts in our lives. And I think this is one of those examples of, the phone being such a, I'm trying to think of the right word.
Catalyst.
A catalyst, and also like this new invention, right?
Yeah.
That where it's like very exciting in the beginning and everybody's jumping on, but at the end of the day, like it does start to bring in feelings of inadequacy or disconnection. And this example that we're giving right now, I think plays into so many of the points that you just brought up a second ago. Isolation, judgment, all these things.
They kind of all lump together. And you can use the phone to make yourself feel like shit. And I think this is what I sort of stumbled upon when I was researching this, is you can also use it to grow and kind of come together in community. We used to come together in circles with our elders and learn about our ancestors and hear those stories. And then that was replaced with radio and then TV, but families were still gathering around in a circle, and you're hearing about other people's stories then, which is great because we can only learn so much from our own ancestors. Like, how great that we can have access to more.
Mm-hmm.
And then now here we are today, and we have our individual screens. So nobody's gathering. You have all this access to many, many, many stories. And it like becomes your choice. How am I going to use this power that's in my hand? Am I going to go down this rabbit hole of, look at all these people that have the life that I wish I had and I'll never have? Or are we going to find our tribe in this new technology that we have? I as much as I love the idea of coming together and doing, being in a tribe again and living in nature and everybody being, raising children together, the likelihood of our society ever going back to that is really slim. But if you are finding yourself on your phone, maybe redirect what you're using that phone, that social media for. Find your tribe. We are in modern technology, and you have access to these. There's some really great mom influencers out there, and one of them is Libby Ward, and there's many, and she is Diary of an Honest Mom. And let me tell you, this girl is so real and does all these funny things to kind of just communicate what so many moms are feeling on a day-to-day basis. And it's like, wow, we went so long without having access to this, to share these similar feelings.
It's all about balance, right? Like, how do you use these conveniences that we have in our life, and how do we balance it out so that we're still able to fulfill ourselves and our souls the way that we were designed, and yet we have access now to so many other ways to connect with people. And so how are we going to utilize that? Like, it's our choice.
Yeah, we do have so many more options. I mean, it used to just be you just were trying to survive. And so the family unit needed to stay together. And then eventually, especially we saw it in the 1950s, the nuclear family became the family structure that was desired. You might have like the grandparents nearby, but it started to become more isolated.
Well, I was going to say, it's definitely, I think, really looking at the United States that way, because there's so many countries where there's still the mindset of, we don't push the kids out at 18 years old. The grandparents live with you as they get older and elderly. So there is still a little bit of that, I guess, sort of larger scale of people living in your home. And I think we see that with a lot of cultures even today that are coming to America from other countries, but definitely in American society, this is what has started to happen.
Yes, I like that you brought that up, because it seems that the more I hear, this is something that is, it is American. It is an American societal structure that we have created. This is not the way it was necessarily intended to be. Like, this wasn't, it's not necessarily natural. And I think that's why we are feeling we're feeling that isolation so deeply. We're feeling these feelings of identity loss because it really is not in our nature to be so separate and raising these kids alone.
It's not. I mean, we were designed, like, we were created to connect. And I know personally, from having parents from other countries and having visited those places, you know, you go to a nice restaurant, kids come along with you. I remember being in the Azores, and my son was one years old, and we went to this really nice restaurant, and immediately when I got in there, the wait staff took him from me, and they're giving him chocolate.
Wow.
And they're like, you enjoy your meal and have a glass of wine and enjoy your family
Oh my
time.
God, every mother needs that.
It was...
Can I have somebody do that for me every night when I have a baby?
It was amazing. And think about talking about the judgment piece of what you spoke about. You know, think about how it is now here, where you go into a nice restaurant and your kid makes a peep and you've got eyes. You
or
know,
on
you're
an airplane.
feeling, yeah,
because your baby is having ear pain from the pressure. It's like,
and people are annoyed. It's like, shut this child up. I got to get to my job, or I got to get, you know, I'm tired. I got to get to where I'm going. And that's what started to happen, is we started becoming so judgy and so separated from everything. And even thinking about a comment I made before about how when you're 18, like, we look at, like, get out, you know, like, you need to go away and do all these things. And it's not like that in other places.
No, and I'm just sort of learning about that through social media. That's another cool thing about the phone that I hate. Love, hate. But
you get access to
I feel like, and I feel like with learning about other mothers in places like Spain, in Africa, in Canada, in Mexico, they are all saying that America is the loneliest place, and they have never been more sad. And here we are. This is supposed to be this place of where dreams are made and this magical place, and everybody wants to come to America. But if you can't be a mom and, like, find connection and belonging, I was listening to this woman from Spain talking about the way they do things. She said they have a park or like near every school, and so, like, after school, all the parents would gather. They go out, they're outside, they're socializing, they're interacting. Here we are living for the weekend and, you know, hustling kids to and from sports and caught in this rat race that, God, come to think of it, that's another thing I didn't know about motherhood when I signed up for it, like, that you would be devoting so much of your time just hustling your kid to and from
being an
sports.
Uber, taxi.
Yeah. And then she would talk about, same thing as you were saying, how everybody would just bring their kids with them. Kids were a part, they had to adapt to the adult's lifestyle, not the other way around. And we definitely do that differently here. It's like, oh, I had a baby. It has to be in bed by 7 p.m. I have to rush home and stop, you know, what I'm doing.
And there's a sign on my door that says baby sleeping, so don't come knocking.
Don't make a noise.
Don't make any noise. Don't wake that baby up. But people didn't do that back then. They did knock on the door and they brought food and they said, let me hold your baby for you. And
it was community.
It was community. A big part of the isolation, specifically to motherhood, is it's assumed that you are doing this alone. And if you can't handle it alone, then you're weak.
Ooh,
and maybe you weren't designed to be a mom, right?
That is definitely the message. That is definitely the message in our society. And how fucking sad is that?
It's fucking awful. I mean, I will say I was very blessed to have my aunt around the corner from me when I first started having my children. And my mom was very present. My brother was very present in my life, literally bringing food, checking in. Do you need a nap? And so
it's beautiful. It's
so beautiful. But it's interesting because, and I don't want to get totally off topic, but I know it all ties in, is I was reading something about loneliness. And I want to look at something I wrote real quick because it said, how you perceive your level of connectedness to others is really what defines loneliness. And I think in our society today, you could have people around you and still have that feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
And so tying it back to motherhood, there were those moments where I had my mom, I had my aunt, I had my brother, I had other people in my life come in, yet there were still moments I felt lonely. And I think there was some expectation on my part where it was like, oh, well, this is my mom, this is my aunt, like I'm lucky to have them around, and my mother-in-law. But I was missing out on that connection with other moms who were going through things at the same time that I was.
Mm-hmm.
And those deeper level connections. It's one thing, it's like, oh, your mom's here to take care of you. And maybe I'm just, very fortunate, but it's like, oh, well, my mom's always supposed to be there to take care of me, right? Like that was
your reality.
That was my reality. But what I was really craving was connection to other mothers who were in the trenches with me.
Shared experience.
Yes, at that time. I wanted to go to the park and just be able to vent to the mom on the bench while our kids were running around.
Healthy that would be.
Yes, totally. I was also reading a little bit about some studies that have come out about how to really strategize and move out of this place of loneliness and into this place of more connection. And one of the things that it did say was, creating your own community. Like sometimes you have to be the one that actually reaches out and find like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
And for me in my journey, I did that. I went to the Mommy and Me clubs. I went to the Music Together clubs. I went to all these places seeking, searching, to try to find my tribe. And although every person I interacted with wasn't in this like amazing deep connection, but when I finally got out of my my own judgments around things as well, I felt like that's when some really cool people came into my life. And I did have some women that I got to connect with and go through motherhood with them. And let me tell you, it was like the skies opened up, the sunshine came out, and that monotonous day, that hamster wheel of a day, didn't feel that way anymore. It became fun. It became exciting, and it was something to look forward to. And it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think going back to what you were even saying about having your device where that could be a vehicle to finding other like-minded people, even if it's just watching that video that day of that mom, who's losing her shit.
That is a form of a shared experience. Yeah. Now, I'm not the only mother in the world that is a hot mess and has bad days. And that just alone is life-changing. It's like a whole different mindset. Oh, okay. I'm not weird.
Right.
I'm not the mess that I'm surrounded by.
Yes.
I'm just having a bad day.
Totally.
And this happens. Yeah.
And you could be that creative mom that now is like opened up to a whole new world of creativity and love all the Pinterest stuff, because that in your heart of your heart is who you are.
Right.
And you don't look at it so much as like, oh, I need to do these things, but it's like that desire of, I get to do these things.
This is fun for me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So no judgment about that. It is different strokes for everyone. And I think, like you said, maybe the moms groups, at least you were taking those steps to put yourself out there. I know I did those too. And I did not connect. And it was really, I just hated it. I hated it. But I love that you said that in just taking that step to put yourself out there, then you kind of put your armor down and you were able to pick out and cherry pick those people that you do have that connection with. And I think that is so important. And I know I did find my tribe too. And you're right. It was life-changing. And it's those women that you can totally be yourself with and share everything. Like, this happened to me. My husband and I are going through this right now. My kid is going through this right now. I mean, it's so healthy and beautiful if you can go through these challenges in life and feel supported. And it does give you that little bit of tribal, like what we were intended to experience in motherhood.
Yeah, you reminded me of a time actually when I did have some of these women that I felt very close and connected to, and I had gone through the baby blues. Then I got connected with somebody else who did struggle with some postpartum depression, and I remember you know, she was open enough to share those things. And so we would make a pact, like once we get to the gym, you know, if you're having one of those moments, like just give the baby to me. I will hold your baby while you go take your shower. And fortunately, the gym that we were connected to had this amazing daycare, but there are times when your baby's just not having a good day and it may not do well in the daycare, right? And so instead of being like, well, sorry, don't come to the gym today, it was like, no, I'm here. I will hold your baby. You go take your shower. You go get your workout in. And, you know, I'll be here for an hour. And then, you know, I might need that day sometimes too, where my kid is freaking out or whatever.
Yeah.
And I need that break. Yes.
And when you're talking about the identity loss thing that was such a sneaky little snake in motherhood that just like, it creeps up on you and then you, like before you even know it, you're there. I feel like there's no warning signs with identity loss. But like just going to the gym or just getting that shower, that can bring you back to yourself. That can create that I am separate from this beautiful yet, you know, very needy little being that now I have to take care of every moment of my life and raise and keep alive and all of that. And it's like, it can just bring you back to you and center yourself. I mean, a shower can be
well, we used to call this gym like our place of refuge because that's what it was. I mean, it was a place that we could go to, and you know, if you had your crying baby with you, you can go outside and there were pools and you could just hang there and other moms would show up. And yeah, it was, and the women who worked in the daycare were just phenomenal. It was, I wish everybody had this experience, honestly, because it really was game changing. And for some of my friends who did work, they could bring their kids to the daycare for 3 hours or more and go sit somewhere in the gym and then go nurse them when they needed to be nursed, go back, you know.
And no judgment around that. If you need a break from your kids, I mean, I think it goes back to, you know, a lot of the other things we've talked about on this show. You have to fill your cup. You have to take care of you. And I think motherhood makes it so easy to, you think I'm a bad mom if I don't do all of these things. And if I have to have a break from my kid and I have to, you know, get myself ready and the baby's crying or whatever. It's like, now I'm a bad mom and I'm neglecting my child. No, you need to put yourself on the list. And in turn, when you're a happy mom, you'll have a happy kid.
Absolutely. Well, it's the whole like put your air mask on first, you know, that plane analogy we always go back to, just because it is so true. It's like you have to be able to give from some place, and women break themselves down and then it manifests in different ways. So even when you're younger having children, you know, not taking care of yourself, not eating right, these things may not manifest during that time, but once your kids get a little older and you start aging, next thing you know, things that are happening to you that you didn't pay attention to, because everything is about making sure my child is okay. And and we need to make sure our children are okay. Like that is our jobs as mothers, but neglecting ourselves is not okay.
No, and you just made me think of the fact that, you know, heart disease, I think it's still the leading cause of death in women. And I think there's definitely a correlation between that. You cannot tell me there isn't. It's like we are the emotional support for our families. We are the main caregiver. We are doing everything for everybody else. And when you are not eating well, not sleeping, running yourself ragged to make everybody else's life better, that's going to take a physical toll.
Well, you know what happens? You start developing a hormone called cortisol.
Oh, yeah.
And it floods your body, and next thing you know, your immune system goes down, inflammation goes up. Like there's a physiological thing that is happening to you, and half the time we're not even aware. And so then what do? Or we feel a little sluggish, so we're like, more coffee, right? I just had a hard week, more wine. And we're actually fueling our bodies with things that are not necessarily healthy just to make it through the day. And how many times have you heard somebody say that? Like, I just made it through the day, you know? And oh my gosh, that's so sad. And it breaks my heart. And I remember watching the clock when I was a mom of 3 and staying at home full time. And it was like, what time is it? Oh my gosh, if I could just get to, 3, if I could just get to, those witching hours, when is my husband going to get home? When is somebody around to just come over? Like, I don't want to do this by myself. And it felt, so that isolation that we talked about, in Psychology Today, it did say that women actually report higher levels of loneliness than men. And again, this isn't like a man bashing thing. This is just like statistics that are true and what's being reported. And a lot of that is because women are they're social minded. So for them, in order to not feel isolated, they need to have those deeper relational connections. And the data showed that men, as long as they have connections, whether it be through networking, whether it be coworkers, they don't necessarily need the depth that women do.
Oh yeah, we need depth.
We need depth.
That's why the moms groups didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I needed the depth. I needed that real connection.
Yes. So those statistics were really revealing to me, because I always feel like, why do I struggle with this? And this is even a struggle today. My kids are now teenagers, and there are moments sometimes where I feel like, gosh, why do I feel so lonely? Because I'm living my best life. Like, let me just put that out right now. Like, I have an amazing world that I have created. But then the question is, like, why does that feeling still creep up, right? And I think after doing some research on this, it really got to the core, where it's like, it's having those deep connections, not just the surface talk. I can go out and talk to my neighbors all day and be like, oh, you see, you got new landscaping, and how did your pool go? And all of that, but that's not like filling my soul. That's just me being friendly.
It's interesting, because I've gotten to a point where I only allow myself, which I don't know if this is good either, but I will only have those connections. And if I am going to go out, it better be with those kind of people that I can have that with, so that's why I'm very choosy. Especially after COVID, it's like we had talked about before, the circle got smaller, and there's a reason for that. It's like, I need depth in my women relationships.
Well, and another one of the statistics, actually it wasn't a statistic, it's more of a strategy, is they did say a big thing to kind of get out of isolation and have more connectedness is really to find like-minded people. And so I think that's the choice that you're making right now, is you're going, if I have this time, how am I going to spend it? And I want to be around people that are more like-minded, so I can have those deeper soul-filling conversations versus
I feel energized afterwards when I go home. And you also made me think about something else, just how it's interesting how men can, I know not every mom is a stay-at-home mom, but a lot of times men will go to work and they'll have, like you said, that social interaction. And then women, even if you are a working mom and you're going to work and you're getting that, it's not the deep kind that we need. So that's fascinating that there is a difference there. You might be around people, it's not fulfilling you. And then also that women, a lot of times, I know this is me, when my husband's out of town and all of a sudden I have like this time, this free time to kind of create my day however I want to create it, and I'm not making dinner, or I'm not thinking about what his day's like. All of a sudden my first thought is, I'm gonna stay home and I'm gonna get all these things done on my to-do list. I mean, really, like, how many women do that exact same thing? I'm not thinking, oh, I'm gonna make plans with this friend and I'm gonna go for coffee here and I'm gonna do this, because I have this guilt that takes over. And I sure as hell know my husband doesn't. Oh my God, when I'm out of town, he is having people over, he's having poker nights, he's barbecuing, and I would get resentful about that. But really, it's like, good for him. And I need to start doing that. But I do think that's specifically something that women tend to do.
Well, because we're always feeling like we need to take care of the family, right? And the family structure. So what's in the home, projects that aren't getting done because of the busyness of life, all of a sudden we have this time and it's like, oh, I need to put this to use.
And that falls on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And yeah.
something to think about, and
It
just
is.
pay attention to, like, how often am I doing that, and what else can I be doing? And even just posing that question to yourself, just as a wondering, what
Yeah.
if I chose to do something else? Like,
Yeah.
then what?
I definitely try to now. It's like we're just not meant to just check off the to-do list every day.
No, but
Find
also
joy.
it's interesting because thinking about the earlier conversation about, you know, just in isolating and having more conveniences, and I think the more we focus on that, there is more to do. So like the bigger house comes with more housekeeping, right? Like the more we acquire in our lives out of conveniences, the more upkeep things need. And so, maybe we can kind of look at this as, what are some things I can like eliminate that are taking up too much time or making me feel like I've got to get these things done? What if I started cutting some of those things out and moved to a place of more simplicity, minimalism, and I'm not saying get rid of everything you have in your house, but what I am saying is, I think we have allowed ourselves to get into a place where like more is better.
Yeah.
And what's happening is more is actually cluttering our time and our minds. And we don't allow ourselves to have the time for coffee or other things that we can be doing that are really filling our souls. And I know even just through the aging process, like as I get older, I am realizing quality over quantity in all aspects, right?
Yeah.
So even in friendships, it's like, I don't need 50 moms coming over here, having a party like maybe I liked to back when I was in my 20s.
Right.
I loved that.
I've been moving away from that as well.
Yeah, whereas now it's like, you know what? I just need a couple of people that, and then there's more room for conversation also, and to really end up going deeper with people when it's a little bit more limited,
The connection is deeper.
Yeah, it really is. And so, yeah, I don't know. Some thoughts are just coming up as we're talking that I feel like, this is an interesting thing to really deeply explore.
All of these aspects of motherhood. I mean, I think just the feeling alone and everything that we had discussed, the judgment, the monotony, just getting out and changing something in your day helps with that. And I was listening to this talk from Esther Pearl, renowned psychotherapist and award-winning author.
I like her.
She's really good.
She's got some good stuff to say. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
What did she say? What'd you note down?
So this is funny, and it wasn't really what I expected. And I'm not going to say it word for word. Basically, someone in the audience asked her how she deals with identity loss, losing yourself, and whether it be in marriage or as in motherhood. And she has older kids, so I want you to listen, think about this with a grain of salt, where she's at. So her kids were 21 and something. They're older. But she said that when she is feeling that way, she gets the fuck out of town. She leaves.
Peace out, homies.
She didn't say that exactly how I said it, but I'm like, ooh, yeah, get the fuck out of town. If you can, even if it's maybe you just go out to dinner with a girlfriend or a coffee, but get out of your house, get out of that monotony that will suck your identity out, because they are connected. That monotonous feeling, you're just doing the same thing day after day. And yes, maybe it keeps your house clean and dinner on the table at 6 p.m., on the dot. But are you fulfilled? Are you living your life? So she said even her husband is yeah, go, bye. He can feel it too.
You need that break.
You need to go. And she said when she does leave, she'll leave for a week, is what she said. I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. One day.
Yeah, one day we'll get there.
One day. But she said she connects with her girlfriends. But it sounds like she also doesn't just do it, it's not a girls' trip necessarily. It's time with herself too.
Right. Yes.
And then she connects with other like-minded friendships that make her feel connected and grounded.
I think it is so important sometimes that you just got to remove yourself out of those environments like your home, where it does start to feel like that monotony is there, or your mind, there's even that thing that people have said, like, oh, if you forget something, like walk through a door frame, because there's something that it does. So I wonder if it's almost the same thing where it's like, get out of your house. I don't know. I just think more creativity and openness,
different energy,
mind. Yeah,
stimulation,
yes,
right?
a different level of stimulation.
And I think that's why motherhood was so difficult for me. There are people who have some really great gifts of organization, and they love to like file things and make things.
Who are those people?
I know. I have friends. I'm like, help me.
I like my stuff to be filed. I just don't like doing it.
Love it clean and organized, but if that's like the worst thing you could make me have to do, I want to be creative. I want to be like enjoying life and out in nature, and like to be in my house and I just don't thrive in that setup. And so that's why I think it's so cool that there are these moms that are like me now on social media. I mean, my kids are 18 and 16, but if I was, just going into this, to have access to, hearing about other moms that are also feeling this way, and then getting tips on how they can, little things that they can do to make it a more enjoyable experience. And I mean, I think you just touched upon a couple of them, but there's so many things that we can do. And it's like, in the big picture of things, you only get these little babies for such a short period of time. And I think the sad thing is what happens is you sort of, like you had even said this too, like you sort of wish the days away because it's so hard, and it's so much harder than you ever imagined. I mean, I remember having this Pottery Barn image in my mind of like the kind of what motherhood was going to be like. I remember picking out Lexi's little quilt for her crib, and like the room was just perfect, and it is amazing, and it is so, I mean, they are really just so magical in so many ways. I mean, kids are this pure light that comes into our lives, but it's so easy at the same time to get completely sidetracked by all of the to-dos and all of these obligations that we think we have to have. And I think for me, if I could go back and do it again, I would just, God, I do like having a clean house, but I think if I could, you think about when your kids were little and how amazing it would be just to, like, if you could snap your fingers and go back to when they were like 2, 3, 4, just one more time, and experience that just one more time. I don't think you would give a shit about if it was a mess around you. You would just be focused on this beautiful little angel. And God, even just thinking about it makes me want to cry, because I just wish that it's like I knew, but I didn't know at the same time when I was raising my kids. I knew it was special. I knew it was going to go fast. But life just sort of like sweeps you up and takes over. And as hard as you try to not miss it, sometimes you do. Sometimes you just kind of like, you're on to the next phase and the next phase, and you you blink and they're 18.
In college,
out
not
of
with
your
home.
You.
Yeah. And I think that's the good and bad also of like reflecting on times, because it is hard to think back and go, what could I have done differently, right? And it's like that time is missed. But at the same time, we can look back and go, wow, we also did have some pretty amazing moments, and those feelings that we can connect to of, remember when I got to put the room together, and how exciting and comforting and,
yes.
and all those feels when you're doing those things, because there were so many fun yes. moments, right?
Oh yes, and there were, and we were present, and we didn't miss it all. But I also think in doing this, it's not really for me or for you, it's to give that gift to maybe a mom of a brand new baby right now that's struggling. Yeah. So it's, at least I can take something that I feel a little sad about, and I wish I could redo, but you can't, obviously. And we always talk about that. We don't like to live there. You can sort of reminisce and like get your little messages from it, your things that you can use to help others.
Well, I think what's happening for me right now as we're talking about all this is I'm even thinking about my own life right now. And, I'm about to launch one into college, but I still have 2 more at home. And it's even like wherever you are in your phase of motherhood, like you get to choose in this moment what you could be doing differently. And I think it's also important for us to recognize the things that we might need in order to do things differently. So when I do even reflect back, I think, gosh, I could have asked for more help when I was, when I was raising my little ones, because, I had 3 under 5. Like it was a chaotic time. And at one point for a year, I had another child in my home that I was looking after. And so it was very chaotic all the time. But like, what could I have done in those moments to recognize that and then ask for the help that I needed? And I even think about that.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. And so many of us were raised that you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't ask for help. Like you've got to do it all yourself. That was such a kind of the generation before us had it even worse. And then it just carried on to us. Those are the messages that we received. Yeah. So I do really have a lot of respect for these younger generations. They are breaking those cycles and they are laying it all out there and being like, this is me right now and it's hard and I need help. And I do think there is this awesome revolution in motherhood happening and people are, it is turning around.
Well, we're giving people permission also, right? Like I think the messages that are coming out now are not that you have to be everything all the time, that it is okay to, not wipe up the spilled milk right away. And yes, your house may stink, but you know what? You tended to your child or you took your shower or you did whatever. And we're allowing people to do that now. Whereas before it wasn't that way. It just seemed before we had maybe access to people sharing these crazy moments, we just didn't have that. And so, and I think even so today, it's like, look at those things that maybe you need to ask for help with, even with teenagers, right? Like there's things that we're dealing with now that we didn't have to deal with when they were younger. And sometimes you do have to call in the village and people
would say having a teenager is challenging in different ways as having a toddler. It's like you have, I think we've talked about this before, you have a lot less control, which is so hard because they are these individuals that are able to have, a lot of freedom and make decisions and sometimes fuck up. And you're just like, holy shit, I wish I could just control you like when you were 3 and 2.
Yes. Right? When that time seemed crazy and out of control.
I felt like I never got to sit down. Now I can sit down, but I'm like, where are they going? Right. What are they doing? I hope they're safe.
Yes, there's just so many other layers of worry, But yes, being a mother, being a woman in the world and recognizing what it is that you need, asking for the help. And I also loved, one of the studies that I was reviewing earlier about making connections, some of the things that they said, like just a little review of, seek out like-minded people. It also talked about creating opportunities. So if you're looking for that connection, maybe you need to be the one that asks somebody to go to coffee or like, hey, can we have a game night together? Whatever you're into. But it requires sometimes you to be the one asking others, right? And reaching out. And then it also, I loved this one. It said, we need to brush up also on our social skills. So when you are seeking out some of those deeper connections in life, like, how are you with your eye contact? Are you really listening to someone else and allowing them that time to talk and not interrupting and not infusing your, judgments?
Which can be hard if you've been cooped up in the house. You're like,
I see what you're saying. Listen to me. Which
I have to work on.
We're kind of lucky because we got microphones now and we can say whatever we want without any of those interruptions.
But we still cut each other off sometimes. So
it happens. We get so excited, right? But like all those things, smile more at people, just the simple act of smiling at somebody. You don't know what that can open up.
Yeah. I like that. Go within. I think with everything, look at yourself. What can I do differently? No, we don't like to do it all the time, but there are things that we can do. If you
Yeah.
if you're sitting around and like you're having a really hard time with those connections, I think that's a great tip.
Well, it's like, how am I presenting in the world also? You know, am I coming off as somebody who is willing and open and available to have a relationship? Or am I sitting there with my arms crossed, you know, staring down at my phone and not opening up to somebody? You know, I may not look approachable, right? And somebody may be judging that and going, not in a bad way, but like, oh, I can't approach her, she's busy. And you know, going back to our earlier conversations, it's like that busyness, all those things I feel like are just so important in desiring that connection and being open for it to happen.
Yeah, and I like that you just said that, because I wouldn't have thought of that as being something that helps you connect with other people. But I think if you are more connected with yourself, it just becomes natural that you'd be more connected with others. So I think that's a great tip. And I also think kind of what you were talking about, you know, in terms of like putting yourself out there, it's vulnerability. And so many of us want to put on like a brave face and like, oh, we don't need, and I remember being so isolated at home with 2 babies, and like the words wouldn't even come to me. I couldn't think of like simple words because I was just dealing with
deprived and exhausted,
not talking to an adult for hours on end. And then I would get around adults, and I remember just feeling like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I can't even talk. But
how am I going to have connections if I can't talk to you?
I can't even talk. I can't even find like simple words. But then, you know, there comes a point, it's like, I just started laughing at myself. And I was with other moms that, yes, they had kids that were older and they weren't in that phase and they weren't struggling to find words and they were making sense. And it's like, we all could just laugh about it because they remembered too. And so it was, you know, I had to be vulnerable though. I had to sometimes feel stupid and out of place and awkward. And then, I mean, those ended up being, I still love these women. They're still part of my sisterhood. I don't see them all the time, but we are like connected on such a deep level that will never go away.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, you know, I always love Brene Brown. And
yes,
if you haven't heard her TED Talk on vulnerability, like, please listen to it, because this is not just about motherhood. It's about just
life
and life in general. But that is a big piece of it too, is like, if you're wanting to receive those things, you have to put them out.
Yeah.
So it does require a level of vulnerability. And it doesn't mean like, you know, go to that park and share all your shit with everyone.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Don't be that girl.
You'll be that crazy bitch in the neighborhood that everyone's talking about.
No. But we're saying, you know, when somebody really does ask you about your day, I mean, it's okay to be like, actually, you know, I just left the house and, you know, these 50 things didn't get done and I'm exhausted and I don't know, whatever your situation is.
My kid's wearing a Spider-Man Halloween costume.
Yeah.
It's, you know, May. It's what it is.
Right.
And that will bond you and connect you because moms get it. And sometimes it just takes being brave and vulnerable. So
and having
Brene
some
Brown.
fun. Like, don't you think also, you know, I always go back to like, where is the fun in these circumstances? And I feel like, I mean, if that kid showed up to the playground in their Spider-Man, I actually want to get to know who that kid is. Like, how do you think and how do you approach your day in life? I want to know more about that.
And good job to the mom for being like, okay.
Yeah.
You know,
it's okay.
It's July and you want to be in your Halloween costume.
And I'm fucking tired and I don't feel like changing you out of it or having this argument.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, it's really not worth it at the end of the day. That's the way they put up the fight. But it's like at the end of the day, too, these are little kids that are like still in the magic of life. And we can learn so much from them if we just put all of our shit aside. Like, to me, you know, the only reason maybe you wouldn't let your kid wear whatever they want to the park or the grocery store is because you're so worried about what other people are going to think. And it's also getting out of that.
Yeah.
Like, who's really the most important person in my world right now? My toddler that wants to be, you know.
My Spidey.
Yeah, my Spidey.
My little Spidey is right now.
And what really matters is that they feel confident and they are showing up the way they want to show up. So.
Yeah, and you just said something and I thought about a really good question or quote where it's like, how do we lean into the magic of life? You know, how do we really do that? When you really think about your day to day, there are so many magical moments. And like, how do we even get to that place where we allow ourselves to really open up to the possibilities of like finding those magical moments?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that came to mind was focusing on them, and the more you focus on them, and the more you'll experience them. For the moms that are listening, that this has given you some sort of like refuge, and this like feeling of, if you're feeling so overwhelmed, that this is shining a little light in your day, and helping you to know that there is hope, and there are other people you can connect with, and there are things that you can do to break the monotony and to not feel so alone. And really it does fall on you. Like, you got to take that step. You got to, I think Michelle was so good about breaking that down. It's like, you got to put yourself out there. You've got to be vulnerable. If you want things to be different, you got to look within. And it can be different. It does not have to be this lonely and isolating. It doesn't have to.
And also there are so many other people out there that are feeling the same way. And I guess that's the biggest thing too, is know that, like you said, you're not alone. And the more that you can be vulnerable and just put yourself out there in that way. And if you don't know how, I mean, there are groups that you can go to. There's therapists you can talk to. You know, again, there's so many resources out there. Like, this is all possible, I guess, is the main message I have for everyone, is that it's all possible and it's all available to you, and that you are enough. And so don't even worry that how you show up might not be good enough or accepted or whatever. Like, you are. And you just need to get out there and just give it a try.
And I just love that there are these terms out there, like, mom shaming. Now people are aware of what that is, and women are coming together and not doing that to each other. Like, if you do, oh my God, the wrath that comes.
The gang of ladies that are like,
you're mom shaming. And then there's also a term called mom burnout. Like, these are things that it was not a part of our, terms that we heard when we were raising our kids. And so I just think it's so cool, and I'm so proud of where this generation is going. And I mean, I think there's a lot of good things happening for mothers these days. And like you were saying, there's information, there's access. And if you don't even feel like you want to leave your house quite yet, you're like a little more of an isolated person, you're a little bit more like introverted, which I can fall into that. There are, you can go on social media and see that there are other moms that are going through things. And that might just be the first step for you. And then you can, venture out, hopefully.
Because it's okay, right? Like, wherever you are on your journey is okay. And if you don't want to go to the park and interact with all the people,
that sounds like hell to you, then no, you don't have to do
don't
that.
Freaking do it. You know, do what it is that you need. And that will fill you up and your soul up, and you will be a happier mother and a happier wife if you're a wife, or friend.
And your kids will be happier. I mean, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when your kids see a fulfilled mom that is putting herself on the list, putting her mask on first, that shows them how to be in their own lives as an adult. I thoroughly believe that. They are not just doing what you say, they are watching your every move. And I mean, not to add more pressure, but it is so important for your kids to see you. I mean, I think my kids, luckily, I did find my tribe, and they grew up watching their mom have girlfriends come over. And I mean, my 2-year-old, I don't know if this is a proud mom moment, but she started saying, "Cheers, drink your wine." Because I mean, that's the kind of thing she saw the ladies doing. And I think it's healthy. And, she has grown up to have really healthy women friendships. And we set the example. So, you may think that you have to have mom burnout to be a good mom. But really, like, your kids need to see you enjoying this one beautiful life that we have.
And we need more happy people in the world.
Yes, we do.